Delightful music, isn't it? Just delightful. Really, really is. This man certainly knows how to play that instrument. Andy Firth, nice to have you with us today.
Thanks, Leigh.
Good to catch you, mate. Really, really good. Gee, you play a mean clarinet, don't you?
Oh, thank you.
Very, very nice. Very smooth.
Been doing it for a while, so you would hope I'd be good at it.
Where did you start?
I started when I was 5.
Wow. On the clarinet?
On the clarinet, yeah. I was playing recorder at the age of 4.
Right.
And then the clarinet I took up because I was inspired by my father. He was an amateur clarinet and saxophone player in Port Augusta in South Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And I've turned 51, so I've been doing it for a while.
Well, you're a young chap. 51, I'm 71, so I've got 20 years on you. So there you are. At the age of 5, how on earth did your mouth adapt to the reeds and so on?
Well, Dad gave me a few hints, but being my father, I didn't want to have lessons from him.
That'd be right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he got a friend of his to teach me. He was a very fine clarinet and saxophone player in the town. I was very fortunate to have 2 good clarinet players, my dad and Bernie Williamson. And Bernie just turned 90, actually, so he's still around. And I think he's probably my best teacher. And he got me started. But my dad was always playing big band and Benny Goodman and Artie Shaw and Buddy DeFranco in the house as long as I can remember. So the music was always there. So I just picked it up. From
the age of 5 into your teenage years, when did you first go into bands and start performing then?
I moved to Adelaide after I did my HSC
right.
in Port Augusta. I got straight on the bus the week after I got my results and enrolled in a Bachelor of Music at the Adelaide College. And that gave me the opportunity to work with a lot of South Australian musicians. And the first band I formed was called the BBC Trio, which was Peter Hooper, a banjo player, and James Clark on bass, myself on clarinet. That's why we were called the BBC Trio. And we eventually became a quartet by adding Billy Pillane on drums, vocals, and trombone. He's very multi-talented. And that band played a lot of jazz festivals and got quite well known. And then I got an invitation in '86 from Don Burrows, the great Don Burrows, who was a mentor of mine and still is, to play at Bondi Jazz Festival. And that was nationally televised. So I got to work with and meet James Morrison for the first time and Julian Leigh and Craig Scott and all those jazz legends that I'd only heard about. And from there, most of the Australian jazz audiences knew me because the Burroughs Collection was a very, very popular TV show in the 80s.
Would have been great times for you, meeting and playing along with those people.
Very exciting. I mean, some of the jam sessions that we would have at the Soup Plus in Sydney and George Street, that would be people like Dale Barlow and James Morrison and John Morrison and Kevin Hunt and, Tommy Emmanuel would drop in. There'd be a lot of people who have now become legends. And we were all cutting our chops on playing music any way we could.
Why Benny Goodman?
Probably because of the amazing virtuosity that the man had. I mean, my 2 jazz mentors have always been, I had 3 clarinet mentors, Don Burrows, Benny Goodman, and Buddy DeFranco, who I was very fortunate to be a friend of and to work with on several occasions. But because of the virtuosic ability of those players, I think I was always attracted to playing fast on the instrument. It's something that I've never really had to work at. I always had a very good technique on the instrument. And people do struggle with the clarinet to get a certain amount of technique. You find saxophone players, because of the way the clarinet's built, they have trouble getting over what we call the break area, which is you go into the next register. It's quite tricky on the clarinet. You've got to cover a lot of holes. And that never seemed to be a problem for me for some reason. So I developed a pretty quick technique on it very quickly.
So what's the secret then of that technique? Is it the hole? It is.
Practice.
Yeah,
it is. I was playing anywhere up to 7 hours a day. So I would sit in front of a record player. I didn't really have a childhood as such. But I think I realised at a very early age that I had to do something in life. And if I was good at this, then I'd better be the best that I could possibly be at it. And so from a very early age, all I ever wanted to do was be one of the best I could possibly be. And my dream, of course, was to play at Carnegie Hall like all musicians.
Let me lead you to that because I read that you went to Carnegie Hall. How did that come about?
Well, it was an invitation from the Carnegie Corporation. I got back from Los Angeles after a tour, and there was an email sitting there waiting for me, and I thought, as you would, it's a hoax. Someone's playing a joke on me.
As you would.
Yeah. Who's going to know me, a little clarinet player from Australia? But it was for real. And so the first person I rang before my father actually was my mentor and my sounding board for all things the great maestro Tommy Tike, who was my orchestration and composition teacher and a dear friend. And I told Tommy about it, and he said, "Andy, sweetheart, you must do it." So that convinced me. As soon as the maestro said that, he said he hadn't even been inside Carnegie Hall, let alone be invited to play there. So I thought, well, if we're going to do this, let's go the full hog and invite my other mentor, Buddy DeFranco, who was still alive at the time, of course, and he agreed to be my guest artist. It was actually a tribute to the great swing clarinet players, and it was just an amazing experience to be standing along one of the living legends of a jazz clarinet, and that was Buddy DeFranco.
What was it like being on the stage there at Carnegie Hall, looking out to the audience?
Frightening.
Was it?
Extremely frightening. I mean, I don't get nerves very often. I've played many jazz festivals all over the world, but I was nervous that night. I really was, because I was standing in the footsteps of legends that have come before, and as they say, standing in the footsteps of giants. And one was standing alongside of me, which was Buddy DeFranco. But I seemed to equip myself okay, and we got away with it, and we had a wonderful afterglow party in Central Park, which was hosted by the drummer's wife, who was so grateful that I had invited her husband to play Carnegie Hall because it was his dream.
I imagine that you wouldn't allow yourself to be too nervous for too long, because that would dry up your mouth and, of course, affect your breathing, wouldn't it?
Nerves is a good thing.
Is it?
Yeah, if you get too au fait with performing, then you become a little bit complacent, and the things that you think can't happen do happen. And especially when you're playing classical concerti, because I played symphonic works as well. But if you're playing Mozart clarinet concerto or the Weber clarinet concerto or something, you say, "Oh yeah, I've played that a million times, no problem." And you get a little bit complacent, and that one passage or that one area that you know can go wrong does go wrong. So I don't mind a bit of nerves, actually, and that's what happened on the Carnegie concert. I think it's one of the best concerts I've ever done, because I was so nervous. I just wanted to excel. I wanted to be right on, focused, and that helped me do that. Nerves is good for focusing you.
I was reading the other day that you played along with Acker Bilk and so many guys, and Diana Krall and so on. What was it like with Acker Bilk?
He was such a nice man. He'd been a legend for so long. When I was a little kid, I'd go into record stores, and my grandfather would have all of Acker Bilk's records, and I never dreamed for one moment he'd become a friend and I'd get to work with him. But that's how it happened. It actually happened through the Kenny Ball band. One of my best friends still is Andy Cooper, the clarinet player from the Kenny Ball band. So I got to work with the Ball band on several occasions, and one of those gigs was featuring Acker Bilk as one of the guest artists. So it was a wonderful opportunity. He was such a nice, generous, and complimentary man. I miss him dearly, actually, because he had some wonderful jokes, and he was a really nice guy. Such a legend. He was bigger than Benny Goodman. When you think about Stranger on the Shore, that was
yes.
Yeah, than Benny Goodman, and he was always so modest. You would never have known he was a huge celebrity. And
you perform with one of my favourite bands too, the Dutch College Swing Band. I love them.
Yeah, I was very lucky to be able to do that. It was Peter Schulperud had an abscess on the tooth. He was quite old, and he had an abscess on the tooth. And of course, Peter Schulperud was the soprano and clarinet player. He founded the Dutch Swing College. And so he wasn't too well on the Adelaide trip, and we were the support act, the BBC quartet were the support act. And so they asked me if I would play baritone with them for the rest of the show, which I jumped at because, get a chance to work with the Dutch Swing College. I didn't know it was going to happen. And so I played baritone sax. I happened to have a baritone sax that I was using in the college big band. And we had that as part of the BBC quartet on that particular night. I don't usually play baritone.
There you are.
Yeah, so it was just one of those.
What an opportunity.
Moments.
Yeah, my
wonderful opportunity. They were such nice people,
Back in 2006, you were honoured with the Australian Mo Award for Best Jazz Instrumentalist. What an achievement.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. I mean, I went along to the awards mainly because Tommy Tico was going to be there and my manager at the time, Ken Lang. I had no idea that I was even nominated, so it was quite a surprise when they called out the name. I went, is there another Andy Firth in the audience? But it was a wonderful moment because Jeff Harvey and my mentor, of course, Tommy, presented me with the award, so it was a great honour.
You're putting in some great names in there. You mentioned Jeff Harvey, and that. So we've had some wonderful conductors and musos in Australia.
Oh, we have, and Tommy Tico was the greatest of them all.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The man was a genius in Budapest. I mean, he played Rhapsody in Blue at the age of 10 years old with the Budapest Philharmonic from memory after having the music for 2 weeks. He was an absolute legend and phenomenon. He was a genius before he hit the shores of Australia. Of course, the Second World War came along, and everything changed overnight.
I remember watching him play Tico Tico one day, and he just did that so brilliantly.
Oh, he was an amazing concert pianist, and not only that, but the man's ability to write symphonic work, orchestrations for any sort of TV show or movie or whatever, and then to be able to write authentic jazz charts is quite extraordinary. I don't think we've had anyone like him, certainly not of the quality.
He was so diverse, wasn't he, Andy?
Well, yeah, he was. And actually, what people don't know was that the great Henry Mancini was actually a fan of Tommy Tico.
They
were good friends.
Were they really?
They were good friends. They toured together.
Gee. Well, you're performing tonight at the Paris Cat Jazz Club, 8:30. That's right. In town. Yep. And tomorrow night, Saturday night, at the Jazz Room at the Rising Sun Hotel, South Melbourne.
Correct.
That's at 7 o'clock. And Sunday afternoon, Jazz by the Green at the Eltham Bowls Club. Good venue. 2 o'clock in the afternoon there. So you go to trybooking.com to get info with all of these. How are sales going for you?
Very good. Yes, I believe we have 128 booked in for the Jazz on the Green. The Rising Sun's doing good, and they reckon that the Paris Cat will sell out. So Benny Goodman's always popular, and I really do enjoy playing Goodman.
With Benny Goodman, I was reading that you've gone back to the original manuscripts, haven't you? And you've learnt it exactly how Benny Goodman performed them.
Well, I actually did a concert at Theatre Australia in 2011 with the Sydney jazz legends, Ed Gaston, who is now unfortunately not with us, and Glenn Henrich is Australia's greatest vibes player. And so what I thought I would do, seeing as we were doing a tribute to Benny Goodman, it was actually going to be an authentic tribute if I actually played what he recorded. So I went to the trouble of transcribing 14 of his original arrangements off the sextet recordings and memorised them. And that's something I probably won't do again. I've still got them under my fingers, but that was like memorising 4 clarinet concertos.
Would be, yeah. That's
and
huge.
I had to play them every day and practice them every day, and I had them in my head for 8 months. And fortunately, the recording and the show was just went without a hitch. So I didn't forget anything, which was my biggest worry, because when you're improvising, you can make up anything.
Oh, of course you can. Yeah.
You just do it.
If you're following a score, it's very different.
Yeah, well, if you're actually having to memorise a legend's solos, and I've done Charlie Parker tributes too, where I had to memorise Charlie Parker solos. And it's really hard to keep them in your head because these people were such giants of the music. But to play a wrong note seems like sacrilege. It's like playing the Mozart clarinet concerto and making it up halfway through because you've forgotten what it was. You just can't do it.
Andy, do you have a favourite from Benny Goodman?
My favourite for Benny Goodman is After You've Gone,
right.
From the quartet recording, about 1936. And my brother actually bought me for my 50th birthday. I don't know where he found it or how he got it. He bought me the test pressing.
Wow.
For one of the versions of the quartets, After You've Gone on one side and the trio of Body and Soul on the other. And it's quite an extraordinary gift because they were the two that were rejected. Those 2 takes were rejected. Obviously, if it's a test pressing, you wouldn't get hold of it if it was the actual recording. But it's written in pencil. It's someone's written on it by hand in pencil, and it just says Benny Goodman Quartet, and it's got the date, and it's got a cross, not a tick. So they must have said, yeah, there's something in that we don't quite like. But the fascinating thing about that recording is that the iconic quartet version of After You've Gone, it is so close. Goodman even plays some of the same solo. So I'm not sure whether it's actually after the one that they actually have put out and everyone knows, or whether it's one before, the take before. Yeah, but it's
interesting
fascinating
fact
to hear something that's not out there. It's a test pressing.
Well, a wonderful keepsake, absolutely.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah, I wasn't sure what to do with it. It's so precious, and I don't think there would be many around. I think they only made 2 at most of test pressings, and if they were rejected, sometimes they won.
They're normally worth a fair bit a day too.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, because I'm a bit guilty about my brother buying it now. I'm pretty sure he got it off eBay, but what an amazing...
what a present.
Yeah,
that's
so
lovely.
my favourite is After You've Gone, which we'll be playing in every show.
You'll be... Yeah, okay. So it's tonight, Friday night, the Paris Cat Jazz Club, 8:30. Bookings at... I think it's Paris Cat. That's right, pariscat.com.au.
Yep, that's correct.
And try booking for Saturday night at the Jazz Room at the Rising Sun Hotel, South Melbourne, and Sunday at the Green, the Jazz by the Green at the Eltham Bowls Club. Andy, it's been a delight to talk to you. Wishing you well with this. Wishing you well, pal. We'll go out with Varsity Drag. I love that song too, and you've done it so well. Yeah, it really is good.
Thanks very much.
Take, pal. Okay. And all the best for tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy. Andy Firth.